We know that the purpose of yoga is to neutralize those fluctuations in consciousness. And there are a couple of different ways that different systems dig into that. The purpose of yoga, we know, is to still those things. And the way that is done is through the process of what is called samadhi, or bringing our attention into oneness. Now, we get the idea, or at least I remember thinking back, getting the idea that, well, if you just do this kind of technique, well, then you're just going to magically be there. And sometimes that happens. However, at a deeper study of the Yoga Sutras, what we see is there's this description of different levels of samadhi. They describe it as a lower samadhi, and they describe it as higher samadhi. And there's a process that you go through, and I am going to be doing some trainings on this so that people get an understanding of it, but I'm going to describe it here. Lower samadhi is said to be with support. And many people imagine it as though with support means, you're doing your technique and that is supporting you to stay in the state of samadhi. And then the idea of higher samadhi is without support. That's when you don't need to do anything to make that happen. Now, what's beautiful about the Yoga Sutras is it goes through this process of step-by-step training you to get into samadhi and how to stay there. And so I'm going to try to describe it to you. And maybe the meditation we do, maybe we'll do a meditation that supports this. With support samadhi means that you are focusing on one thing. And one of the interesting things that yogis focus on are the elements, the physical elements: fire, water, earth, ether, and air. Even Sri Yukteswar, in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, discusses this as a way of getting into this. It's even in the Yoga Sutras. So let's take, for example, the idea of the earth element. Well, if we were going to meditate on the earth element, what we would do is we would use all of our mental capacity to think about rocks, mountains, hardness, density, gravity, weight. And when you're doing that, you are practicing samadhi on the earth element, even though you're thinking, but the thinking is the with support. So it's just like when you're trying to learn something else. If you just keep bringing your awareness back to it, then that is the support that is bringing you a state of samadhi. But that is a lower samadhi because it's requiring you to constantly remind yourself: rocks, hardness, roughness, durability, these types of things. But then the next stage, the way this is taught, is first you focus on that. Then after a few minutes of focusing on that, it's like your consciousness has a momentum to continuously think about that. And you'll find that to be true in other areas of life as well. And so then the next stage would be, all right, so durability. If I could feel that within my body, what would that be like? Heaviness, weight, strength. If I could feel these within my body, what would that feel like? And then you're starting to get to, you're still in a lower level of samadhi, but now it's a samadhi without support, because you're not having to tell yourself how to do it all the time. And you see, this goes in stages. So there's no magical formula. It's you're training yourself to think about one thing. Now you're training yourself to let the words go and to abide in the feeling response of it. And then the next stage, once you've done it so much and you've been there for a while, now it becomes natural. That's really all you're aware of, is the sense of heaviness, density, the bones within the body, and so on. And when that is happening, and you're not thinking about it, and you're not forcing yourself to focus on it, then you are in a state of higher samadhi without support, because it's happening naturally. And in the Yoga Sutras, they talk about this is the way that chitta, that consciousness, is trained or conditioned. And that's why they use the elements to do this. They'll start with earth, then they'll move up to water, and it's going through the chakras. This is great because it's exactly what I wanted to talk about today anyway. And then they go up to fire, and then air, and then space. And what's happening here is this is a program, a yogic program, like training, that if you do it repeatedly, it is training your consciousness to hold it in one space and then let it continuously flow in that direction. There are ways of doing this, but it requires that that there are these levels, and the thinking part of it is necessary. But then you think about it so much, it develops a groove, and then you just keep going. But then you have to, I don't know if you saw the video called Holding Your Mental Breath, or it's the one meditation technique all students should know. And that holding the mental breath is like, okay, now you're letting go of the words, and now you're existing in this experience. And then you stay there for as long as you can. So to tie it back into things that you know already, what you need to do is whatever technique you are using, you have to find a way to mentally get into it first if you've got distractions and fluctuations. And it's okay if that's all you do for that time, like feeling the current going up the spine. Well, what would it feel like if there was this cool rush of water going up the spine? What would it feel like if there was this soothing, warm flow moving down the spine? What would it feel like if I was pulling more deeply into this really comfortable state? And you might be kind of talking to yourself in your head while you're doing that. But then eventually you're going to let that go. And now you're just going to focus on, without words, what that feels like. And eventually it becomes so natural that you're not even having to hold it there anymore, because the nature of consciousness, the nature of chitta, is habit. So if your consciousness is habitually distracted, well, it's going to be easy for you to be distracted. But the more that you pull it in and you are training yourself in meditation to focus, be less distracted, well, then it's like that groove of distraction goes away, and the groove of focus gets deeper. And then eventually, that's why it's so beautiful how this works. And then eventually, when you decide, I want to meditate on God, that infinite consciousness, we've got that deep groove that your consciousness just goes right in it and stays there for the whole duration of the contemplation.